Hey, you guys seen this clip? This is Sneako. You heard of this guy? Sneako is one of those figures who I didn't even really bother covering that much because he so transparently believed in nothing that it just again it's like it's an empty men thing.
Did you say the woman? The woman.
What? No, wait.
Sneako.
We love women. We love women. We love women.
But not like transgenders.
Yes, sir. We love everybody. No.
All gays
Yeah,
should
fuck
die.
gays. Yeah, merch. Preach. What have I done?
Can I get in the video? The fucking talk.
Can I get in the video? Yeah. Talk to him. Yo, what's up?
First of all, the fact that he's doing like a meetup and all of the fans who want to spend time with him are actual 10-year-olds is so funny. I'm just like level. Let's do this by level, okay? First of all, like level 1, incredibly funny, right? Like I get recognized in public, and it has always been by people who look, in their 20s or whatever. The idea of like going to a meetup, it's not a meetup, it's a basketball game. Oh, okay, basketball game. I guess it's just a bunch of kids recognized him. Whatever. I think basketball games a pretty diverse range of age people going there, so I don't know if there's like a bias towards 10-year-olds running up to you, but whatever the case may be, you know, zooming up. Well, I think no, I think it was known Sneako was going to be doing that there, like because he does the IRL live streaming, so they were like, oh, he's going to be at this game. Like if I go there, I'll see him or whatever. And the people who showed up are all 10 or whatever. They got their moms to drive them. Anyway, for one, incredibly funny. For two, wow, that's horrifying, huh? I saw a tweet that said it best. You could do everything right raising your son, but he spends 2 hours at a friend's house who has unlimited internet access and comes back and calls his younger sister a thought or something like that. Like, what the it's so bad. It's not even funny how fucked up it is. No, it's like, yeah, it's pretty terrifying. Though I do think I do think that there's something positive to be said about the fact that like it is all like 10-year-olds that are doing this, right? I mean, like the bias towards the red pill content leans so young that it's an indication that these ideas are untenable for people who are like post-pubescent. You know what I mean? I think Mudahar put it best. Yeah, if this was my fan base and I met them like this and put a bullet in my head that second, Lamau. Yeah, I think that's a fair argument. I think a good point is being made here. I think, it's a reasonable, logical, sort of Greek philosopher kind of point right there. It's not good. It's also been reported that children have been saying sexist things to their teacher in UK schools. Yeah, I've even gotten emails from people who work in education where they've essentially said like, the high school boys, like 11th and 12th graders, are fine. Like they're rude, but they've always been like that. But then there's like you have like eighth graders or whatever, or like even younger, and they're insane. Like they'll just randomly say shit like actually the Holocaust didn't happen, or like actually all women are whores or whatever. They're like 10 or 9 sometimes or whatever, and they'll just randomly say that shit. And oftentimes like they don't even know what they're saying or believe in it or whatever. Like it's not a reflection of a sincere political belief. It's just like a thing they're saying. Yeah, I don't know. Do they think it's just memes? Well, that's always how it goes, okay? And so this was like the lowest IQ discourse about a decade ago, which was whether or not like people could joke but also mean the joke. This is like the epitome of 4chan pseudo irony, right? And this is what weak people do. Now, I'm not going to blame a 10-year-old for doing this because when I was 10 I did the exact same thing. But it's a matter of how you do it, right? It's when you say something and you do like the Schrodinger's asshole thing, where if people like it, you're being serious, and if they don't, you're joking. But you're always kind of being serious because it's not really a joke, because you'll defend that position kind of if people push back in it a little bit, right? So like you have a 10-year-old saying like, yeah, all women are whores. And if you ask that 10-year-old, like, do you really believe that? They'd be like, nah. But like, do they? Kind of? Maybe a little, like it's like, well, what do they actually believe underneath that? And they're like, well, I think a lot of women are whores. You ask them and there's something underlying that prompts the joke. Because it's not really a joke, is it? It's like, if you go over to 4chan or Poll or 8chan or Stormfront or whatever else, you'll see lots of jokes that are basically just black people are subhuman. But the cool thing about these jokes is that none of them are funny. All of them are predictable. None of them have any like comedic structure to them. At the most, you could say they're comedic in their hyperbole, but even that, not really, because they seem to believe even the most hyperbolic versions of their arguments. So are they actually making jokes, or are they just using the format of a joke in order to deliver bigotry? Right? That's what I've said before when it comes to edgy jokes. That's my metric. All right? I don't think there's anything necessarily bad about edgy jokes. Jokes that have like a racial or a sexual or a gender or problematic element. We make them, everyone makes them. You make them in public, you make them in private, everyone makes them to some extent. The question is, what is the point of making that joke? Is it the comedy, or is it the bigotry underlying it? And if it's the comedy, then, okay. And if it's the bigotry underlying it, then you can usually tell because it's not funny and they keep making the same jokes or like shock humor bullshit or whatever. Yeah. South Park pushed this on a lot of people as well. A lot of people. Yeah. So, you see stuff like this. I do think that there's some hope because the fact that the ideologies and attitudes pushed by people like Sneako and Andrew Tate overwhelmingly represent themselves in very young boys suggests to me that these ideas are untenable and don't make sense when you get older. There's been a lot of hubbub about Gen Alpha being less progressive than Gen Z or millennials, but that only looks to be the case if you're looking at like 14-year-old white boys. There's a specific demographic of people, maybe not necessarily white, it's like a general thing, not racial, I think, but there's like a specific age point as a young man where basically all conservative propaganda is being targeted directly at you. Like, conservatives have more or less realized they're not going to have that much luck bringing over people who are in their 20s or 30s or 40s. Like conservative propaganda just doesn't work that well to people who are even remotely educated, which is why they don't want you to get an education. So they try to target young people. And because conservative politics right now are fascist, and fascism is very heavily rooted in male sexual insecurity, they target young boys. But the weird thing is, I'm just taking guesses here or whatever, but like these kids literally look prepubescent, which means that they're younger. They're young enough that they're not even subject to the kinds of insecurities that are a product of puberty, which means like, what the is going on? Where are they even getting what sexual insecurity could you possibly target in a 10-year-old? What's even in their head? They're playing Roblox or whatever. I don't know. Like what? So girls are mean to them, Vosh? I don't even think that's true in a lot of cases. A lot of it is probably just like you cooties shit. That is to say, you're taking advantage of how do I put like sorry, I said you cuties, but that's actually the opposite of the position that Sneako had. It reminds me of when I was like in first grade, and there was one gay kid in the class or something. Maybe third grade, I don't remember. There was like one gay kid in the class, and he was really annoying. So I just decided I hated gay people, and then like I met another gay person who was fine that I didn't. There was no real weight to the belief. It was just like a child brain observing and drawing patterns from exactly one observation, and then but it like meant nothing. It wasn't like a belief I held. There weren't any like associated beliefs. I didn't develop an ideology off of it. It was just like, oh wow, gay people are annoying, they suck, bah. And then like that's it. Like it was simple brain logic. And I think that's what it is to a lot of them as well, where there's not much thought or ideology put behind what they're saying. There's not like a real set of beliefs here. There's a desire to fit in, and there's like pattern recognition drawn very simply from an incredibly limited data set that they're latching onto because they're literally children. They're literally kids. They're not, their brains are tiny. They're small brain kids. I know it sounds dumb, but I actually find this a little bit heartening, personally. We just don't have that much data on how people trend with regards to like internet exposure and like over time how susceptible they are to these kinds of propaganda. However, I will say this much, which generation of people were the first to grow up with that like politically targeted, deliberately insincere kind of irony that's meant to move you over to a conservative position by baiting you into free speech positions? That would be me. People who are about 30, more or less. Something in this ballpark, not Gen Z, younger millennials. And younger millennials are overwhelmingly progressive. In spite of the fact that a lot of people that I knew back when I was 14, 15, 16, especially men, having a brief libertarian phase or like getting in on the like 4chan irony or whatever, in spite of that influence, you grow up and demographically speaking, on average, the generation is quite progressive. So I would like to believe that in spite of what a lot of people are worried about, we see evidence time and time again that these kinds of behaviors are just not compatible with the real world. That this, like, whether it be red pill ideology or like incel shit or like baby's first libertarianism or whatever, time and time again we see the same thing. And it is mostly young boys. There is an issue there. But these ideologies, if they even are ideologies and not just like symbols in the minds of these kids, usually do not survive adulthood. That's why so many people on the left say they had like a reactionary phase. And what a lot of them mean is that for a brief time when they were 16, they liked Ben Shapiro. And maybe that is a reactionary phase, but it is telling how often people grow out of this. Jordan Peterson, no longer widely beloved. You would hear about Jordan Peterson all the time in 2016, 2017, 2018, and nowadays you kind of don't outside of people making fun of him. And when he does get praise, it's in the context of him being just like another conservative pundit, not some like psychiatric daddy who helps everyone find purpose in their life. He's just another conservative, right? And a lot of that is because many of the people who grew up listening to his advice found it didn't really fix anything and kind of grew out of it. That's not like an onboarding mechanism anymore. Andrew Tate fallen off considerably, and his fan base was largely like very, very young, insecure guys and a couple of like cynical, grifty tech bros who made a lot of money from doing like drop shipping and his little pyramid scheme media share project, right? Overwhelmingly, it seemed like his support was artificial, and to the extent that it was sincere, it was very young people. Remember, what country was it? Was it Poland, where we saw like a march for people to defend Andrew Tate, and they were all like 14, 15-year-olds? Greece, that was it, Greece. You know, I just don't think these ideologies, these beliefs, these mentalities, these patterns of behavior work consistently as you grow older. So that's the hopium that I'm extracting from this clip. A reminder that as important as it is to fight against these beliefs and these messages, you know, they are largely ephemeral and do not grip people as tightly as it may seem. Don't assume that someone who at 10 says something like all women are whores is going to like continue to believe that like they're 10, you know? Just saying.